Hello dear learners, welcome back to my channel. From a long time now, I have been receiving requests from a lot of my learner friends that they need tutorials in Spring Framework. So I have now started this Spring Framework series in which I will be covering the whole Spring Framework and the Spring Boot Framework. In this particular Spring Framework, we will be talking about Spring Basics, that is the introduction about Spring and the IOC and the AOP. We will be also talking about Spring Web, and we'll be talking about Spring Data, and we will be also covering Spring Microservices. So there are a lot of different parts of the Spring Framework that we will be covering here. Post that, we will be covering the whole of Spring Boot. So in today's session, we will be talking about introduction to Spring. What exactly is Spring? Why do I need something like Spring? Okay, and how to use it to our advantage. So we will be also looking at the advantages of Spring Framework in today's session. So without further ado, let's get started. So Spring Framework came into existence in around 2003, and it was authored by a developer called as Rod Johnson. Okay. And why something like Spring was needed on the first place? Because if you talk about predecessors of Spring, they were EJB or Enterprise Java Beans. Now, Enterprise Java Beans were server-side applications. They were used to create enterprise applications, but they were really heavy. It was like petting an elephant, frankly speaking, wherein there was a lot of input that was going in to get very little output from it, right? So, a lot of developers were facing issues with Enterprise Java, Enterprise Java Beans, to use them for making their enterprise applications. And that is when Spring Framework came into existence, and it simplified a lot of things for the developers. In fact, it made it really very simple for developing an enterprise application for your projects. So let's talk about the overview of Spring. But even before we could talk about Spring Framework, let's understand what exactly a framework is. So let me take an example. Let's say if you are building in making a building. Okay, now for making a building, there are a lot of things that you need, right? You need an iron structure to be built, you need bricks, you need cement, you need a lot of other things to make a building. Now let's say, for example, if somebody is giving you that whole metal structure of a building ready made, you just have to put up that metal structure and put up the bricks and the cement. Imagine how easy it would be for making buildings like this, right? That's precisely the role a framework plays. Okay, a framework gives you a base structure to build an application, so that as a developer you are focusing only on the business logic and not on the nitty-gritties which are needed for developing a application, or to make it secure, or to get a connection pool, or whatever other boilerplate code that is needed. To avoid all that, you can use a framework. So as you can see here, a framework is essentially a skeleton around which the fleshing out of your application occurs. So it's basically a skeleton that is being given to you, on top of which you can design your own business logic, right? So that's what a framework is. As I said earlier, it's like giving you a whole metal structure, the whole iron structure that is needed for making a building, and then you make your building on top of it, alright? So this has an advantage that it will save you a lot of time, it will save you a lot of effort, okay? But a little drawback, I'll not say disadvantage, but a little drawback that it gives is that there are going to be a lot of pre-assumptions, or there are going to be a lot of assumptions when you use a framework to be made sure that they are being done. That is, a set of libraries need to be available. Then a need, when you're making an application like this, there are going to be a lot of configurations that you'll have to do to make sure that the application is working. So I'll not say it's a disadvantage, but I'll say it's a drawback, or it's like something that it's a little cost that you have to pay for simplifying your development. Okay, so that's going to be there. As I said earlier, Spring Framework came into existence in 2003, and it was being designed by Rod Johnson, and it's an open source framework. Okay, and it caters to simplifying the development of enterprise applications. Okay, this is one of the primary advantages that it gives, that it's very simple to write a Spring application. Okay, it's just a normal Java class. The way as simple as writing a Java class is, this is going to be as simple as that. Okay, so that's going to be it. Another primary advantage that Spring gives is it's a layered architecture. Now what do I mean by this is you can choose from all the available components that Spring gives you which one to use and which one to not use. Okay, you can choose a few and not use the other. Okay, Spring will say, okay, fine, you want to use this particular part of my whole architecture, fine, you use that, you don't use the others. Okay, now Spring provides a lot of you can say components of its own, but that does not mean it forces you to use those components itself. It's flexible enough, it gives you advantage of using other components also. So you can say it is compatible with outside frameworks also. Like I'll give you an example. Let's say if I have a database technology to be used, let's say I want to develop an application which connects to, let's say, MySQL database. Okay, and I want to connect to MySQL database. Now Spring provides its own APIs which you can use to connect to the database and get the data from the database, but it is not mandatory to go and use that particular framework. Let's say if you have been a Hibernate developer, okay, in the past, and you have that knowledge of using Hibernate, Spring says, okay, you know Hibernate, you use Hibernate and you connect to the database, I will support. So that's the advantage of using Spring framework, that it is layered, which allows you to be selective of what you want to use and what you don't want to use. Secondly, it also is compatible with other third-party frameworks or other third-party APIs which you can incorporate in your project and use. So that is also another advantage that Spring gives you, okay, over other frameworks. Okay, so these are a few things that gives an edge to Spring framework over other frameworks. Again, it provides you better OOP. What is OOP? We all know, right? Object-oriented programming, right? So it makes it more better. You can say it is a better version of object-oriented programming because it implements concepts like IOC, that is inversion of control, which makes it better. Also, it gives you possibilities of AOP. AOP is basically aspect-oriented programming. I repeat, it is aspect-oriented programming, which simplifies writing programs. It helps you in segregating different logics from each other. Usually when we write applications, we tend to write everything into the single code. Okay, AOP gives you an advantage of separating out logics and keeping it clean and clear. Okay, so that's also one of the advantages the Spring gives you. As I have said earlier, it's very lightweight, it's very simple to write a Spring code. It's as simple as writing a Java application. Okay, so it's going to be simple. Okay, again, it's not limited to server side. It gives you APIs for absolutely everything, starting from security, testing, simplicity. It also gives you loose coupling, as I have also mentioned that earlier, that it is not going to force you to use a particular API that it is providing. It gives you flexibility of using third-party APIs also in your code. Okay, so that's the few more advantages of using Spring. Okay, and again, this is again a very important thing, that it gives you declarative transaction management. So when it comes to transaction management, be it method level transaction management or database level transaction management, it can be declarative. That is, you don't need to write it in the code. It can be configured externally through XML files, property files, or through some other Java code also. It can be done. It gives you remote access to your logic using RMI. You can create web services. It has various mailing facilities. It has various other options of various options of persisting data into your database. As I said, it has its own APIs which you can use if you want to. If you are well versed with some other database API, you can use that also with Spring. Spring supports it. Okay, so that's another advantage that it gives you. Okay, so it can configure all this very easily. We have been already speaking about a lot of benefits of Spring, but yet just to put it down, you can see it is a layered architecture which enables you to use what you want and leave that you don't want. Okay, that's as simple as it can be. Leave whatever you don't want and use what you want. Okay. Secondly, it enables POJO programming. What is POJO? POJO is plain old Java objects. That is, writing a very simple class with attributes, its setter methods and getter methods and constructors. That's a simple Java class, a simple Java bean class as we know it. Okay, so you can write simple Java classes with attributes and methods in it, and Spring allows you to use it. Okay, also it has this is like the biggest advantage that Spring brings on the board, is that it provides IOC or dependency injection. IOC is basically inversion of control, and dependency injection. Okay, that's the way of implementing IOC, dependency injection. Basically, we will talk about all these concepts in our future videos as and when we go ahead with the whole concept of springs and Spring Boot. This simplifies a lot of things. I have mentioned JDBC here, but not just JDBC. Every implementation that we have gets simplified because of IOC being in the picture. I'll show you that through code also, because as you have always known that I give you examples of absolutely every concept that I teach here. So we will definitely see examples in IOC, dependency injection also in future. Open source makes it simple for the developers also to customize it in their own way. Okay. Lightweight, we've already seen that it has very little overheads, processing overheads. The code is simple. You can write simple Java classes to implement it. So yes, lightweight. IOC helps you in achieving loose coupling. We will talk about this in detail. This whole line we'll be talking about in detail. What exactly is IOC? What exactly is inversion of control? How it helps you in achieving loose coupling, and how it simplifies writing code. How it makes it so easy to write your code, to call methods. We will see that. AOP, again, I have said earlier that it will enable you to write cohesive code. Okay, code which is not tightly coupled, code which is separated in terms of business logic and the additional logics that you need, like security, logging, and any additional logic that you need. How AOP enables it to very easily separate it out from your actual business logic. Okay, and again, portable between application servers. You can easily use it on different application servers. In fact, the best part about Spring is that you can even write it as a simple web application using Tomcat server. You don't even need an application server for running a Spring application. So that's another advantage, okay, that it provides. In our future slides, we will be, or in our future videos, we will be talking about Spring architecture. In today's video, we will be stopping here. Again, the whole Spring series is not going to be really long videos. They're going to be short, crisp videos talking about one specific time at a one specific thing at a time. And we will not be covering too many things in a video. Just keep our focus on one thing at a time. So that is it in today's video. If you have any questions, please put it down into the comment section. You can even email us. You can write us on Instagram. You can even connect to our Telegram group and discuss there various things and ask your questions, get your doubts cleared. Also, if you want to provide some feedback, also we are you're welcome to do that, and provide us insights on how we can improve our videos and help you out further. So that is it for today. Thank you. Bye bye. Have a good week ahead.